And we start, or not. Son of a, hold on. Can you hear me now? Oh yeah. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So today we are going to start our discussion of, hello you, extendable hashing. So extendable hashing is the second standard method for doing on-disk based searching, and it's based, of course, on hashing, but it gets around all of the uncomfortable or unpleasant sort of issues with hashing in memory. Okay. So this is another promising approach. For on-disk search. And promising in the sense that, you know, we looked at trees because trees did well, that worked out for us. So now we're going to look at hashing. Maybe we can extend this bad boy to disk-based search. So best case, hashing can search in order 1, constant time, right? So you basically convert the, hold on a second here. There we go. So basically you convert the primary key into a hash value that gives you a location in your hash table. You store it there. Later when you go to find it, it takes basically constant time because all you do is hash, search, retrieve, return. Great. Unfortunately, there's always a catch. 2 key problems, and we saw these with hash algorithms. Today. So you remember that first, search can deteriorate to order n, sorry, if too many records are inserted into the hash table. Okay. So if I have a hash table with 100 buckets, 100 entries, and I insert 1 million keys in there, my expectation is at about 10,000 keys per bucket. And so if you're talking about 10,000 keys per bucket, and that's giving the best case scenario of a uniform distributed hash function, searching 10,000 keys, you're at order n. You're just doing a linear search of that 10,000 key bucket. And so you're not actually running in constant time anymore. So of course you would say, yeah, well, I'll just make the hash table bigger and then I can fix that problem. However, we immediately recognize that there is no efficient way to increase or decrease table size. And that's because the hash function uses the hash table size inside it. And so what that means is that if we change n, the size of the hash table, then the hash values for every key that we've inserted into the table changes as well. And so we're now going to have to go and remove everything and reinsert it into the new table. So the search may be efficient after we do that, but we've got a maintenance issue, which is that we can't actually maintain the table in the same amount of time that we can search it in. And so this would not be an efficient algorithm. Okay. So any hash algorithm for on-disk must solve both issues. If you don't, they're just going to get worse once you hit disk, okay? And so extendable hashing was proposed by Nievergelt, actually Fagan, Nievergelt, and Nick Pippinger, and Strong at IBM Research. And the Universitat Zurich in 1979. Okay. And so I actually know Nick Pippinger. He's a great guy. He's a very famous theoretician. There's actually a class of members called NC, which is named after him. It's Nick's class. Very humble, very, I don't know what the right word is, unassuming person. So at least when I was a grad student, we would watch him walk around campus, and he had these rubber boots like you have when you're a kid, those black boots with red soles on them. And he would be walking around, and he would always be looking down at the ground as he walked. So he'd be walking all over the place. And so my classmate, my colleague in my office said to me, wow, Nick Pippinger, super famous theoretician. What great thoughts do you think he thinks as he walks around campus, looking down? What problems is he solving? And I told him, yeah, he's probably just walking around thinking left, right, left, right, left, right. But yeah, so his wife was our department chair. She's now the president of Harvey Mudd University in California. I just saw her actually when she came for a invited talk about a year and a half, 2 years ago. She seems to be doing really well. And so super smart guy. So I'm not surprised he's on this actual, what I would call seminal paper. And so what were they doing here? So the stated goal for this work was to guarantee no more than 2 page faults to locate data. Well, that was interesting. Do we not pay our electric bill? Okay, there we go. It's the apocalypse. Anyway, to locate data associated with a given unique identifier. And so that's just, I'm writing a paper and I have to sound like I'm being very clever speak for retrieving a key from any size collection in no more than 2 seeks. Okay? Well, if we can retrieve any key from any size collection in no more than 2 seeks, then we now have an algorithm that runs in order 1 time. And it's also going to be able to support increasing and decreasing the size of the table as needed, i.e. Support addition and therefore update in order 1 time as well. And so I don't know if you remember this, but way back before all of this foolishness started, I mentioned to you that we will actually show you an algorithm that does search in constant time for any size collection, and this is it. So for all of you who've been sitting excitedly waiting for the day to come, it's here. I suspect that's none of you, but whatever. It's still going to be fun. How does it work? Well, let's talk about that. So before we do, we have to talk about tries, because they form the basis of this particular approach. So extendable hashing is based on the trie. Data structure. Okay, and a trie is a tree. It's a tree structure. That subdivides a key by its individual components. So as an example, if a key is a word or a string, let's say, containing only lowercase letters, each level in the trie has 26 possible branches, right, for the 26 lowercase letters. A, B, C, up to Z. And a leaf in a trie contains the key that branches to the given location in the trie. So let me give you an example. Suppose we wanted to insert the following into a trie. And should I talk about Patricia trees first? Yeah, let's talk about radix trees before we do that. So these are just a slight variation on tries. So a radix tree, or it's often called a Patricia tree. Patricia stands for Practical Algorithm to Retrieve Information Coded in Alphanumeric. And so somebody got a little crazy with their acronyms, but anyway. It's actually a Patricia trie, my bad. Patricia trie is a compressed trie, where an internal node with only one child is merged with its child. And so this is for space optimization. Otherwise, you tend to get tries that are really long in terms of their branches, but there's actually nothing except a single path that you're following past some point. And so it's a waste to have this single path and have to follow all these nodes down to the final leaf node. You can just pull the leaf value all the way up to where the path stops branching and make it shorter. So I'll just give you a quick example, and then we'll look at a trie, a Patricia trie for a set of animal names, so you can see what's going on. So as an example of just why we would want to shorten these, consider two keys, K naught equals Wolverine, and K1 equals Woodpecker. Okay, so if we just had a try, we would probably start out with W, O, and then L, V, E, R, I, and E, and W, O, and then at this point, we would actually split onto a new branch, O, D, P, E, C, K, E, R, right? And so you see what I mean about the fact that once we get past WO, there's really no point in having that long branch for the rest of Wolverine or the rest of Woodpecker because it's not differentiating anything. It's just a single branch, a single path that's sitting out there taking up space. So if we went with a Patricia trie, then what we would do is we would still have WO because there's two paths following that. But once we got to L and O, we could actually stop. And we could just make this a leaf node. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, and so this would be Wolverine, and this would be Woodpecker. And what I'm trying to figure out is, yeah, we do need this. Okay, so I was just trying to figure out whether we needed this, and we do. And so this would be Wolverine, and this would be Woodpecker. Okay, so we would actually stop at that point, and the L leaf would have the key Wolverine, and the O leaf would have Woodpecker, and we would need all this extension. And in fact, since this part is the same, we could further compress this to be WO, and then L and O, and then Wolverine and Woodpecker. Okay, so that's a trie, and that's a Patricia trie or a Radix trie, Radix tree. Okay, so it's just a method of taking a trie and making it a little bit more efficient. All right. So let's look at an example where I put a few more names in. Any questions about this before I erase it? Okay. So what have I got here? I'm going to put in aardvark, and then bear, and then beaver, and then tiger, walrus, wolverine, and then woodpecker, and a zebra. Okay? So at the initial node, we have A, B, T, W, and Z. So A, B, T, W, and then Z. And this one just ends at zebra because there are no more Zs. This one ends at aardvark. Nothing else starts with A. But for B, we have bear and beaver, okay? And so the thing to recognize about this is to T. DEA and DEA are common on both of these. So the split comes at the fourth letter, all right, which would be R for bear and V for beaver. Okay? And so T, there's only tiger. And for W, actually, if we look at W, we have walrus, wolverine, and woodpecker. So we do have a WA and a WO. So we do have to take that into account. Okay. And here we end at walrus, WA, nothing else starts with WA. For WO, we have wolverine and woodpecker. And so we've already seen this. We have an L node and we have an O node, and then that gives us wolverine and woodpecker. Okay, so that would be the Patricia tribe for those particular keys. Okay, and so I think the key that you want to recognize about these is that a path is only made as long as is necessary to differentiate two keys. Okay, so if adding more length to one of these paths is not going to differentiate anything, that is, there are no multiple keys along a path, you can stop the path. And that's exactly what this does. Okay, and we're going to use that exact same kind of strategy when we start working with extendable hashing. So we're going to start with a very small table that uses a very small piece of each key. And as we add more keys and that small piece is no longer able to differentiate amongst the keys we have, we're going to have a very effective way of increasing the size of the table without having to do any reorganization, so that we can continue to differentiate amongst the keys that we're actually storing. And so that's the reason why we're talking about transfers. It's just that they form the basic idea behind how extendable hashing is going to work. All right, any questions about that before I move on to the extendable hashing part of the lecture?
Dr. Healy, regarding regular tries in your next level, 26 possible branches, but I was thinking it would be each node. Is that not right?
Say that again?
I was thinking that each node would have 26 possible branches.
Yeah, and actually even here, each node has 26 possible branches. I'm only showing the ones that are being used.
Right.
Yeah. And for a regular try, that would also be the case. The difference would be you get these really long, stringy, single node paths that sort of extended down the end of the try. And so that's what we're removing here. But yeah, you're right. Every node has the possibility of 26 branches, and you'll be using some or all of them.
Okay.
Other questions? All right. Okay. So extendable hashing compresses tries into a structure of keys in a collection. Okay. But rather than a try that splits letters in key K, we first hash K, to obtain H. I'll call it H of K, the hash value for K. Then construct a try. That splits on the binary representation of HK. So this is a radix tree with a branching factor of 2. Right? So if you think about HK, it's some number, and then if we convert that to binary, we're going to get a 0 or a 1, a 0 or a 1, all the way down to a 0 or a 1. Or we're going to get 8 of these for every value that's in the hash value. And so that's why it's a branching factor of 2 for the radix tree, because at any node in the tree, you're either going to follow the 0 path or the 1 path if you're following a path for a particular key, a particular key's hash value. Okay? And there's another nice thing about the fact that we have a branching factor of 2. Now we can actually place, so we place a fixed size bucket at each leaf in the trie to hold keys whose hash values match the bits along the buckets, along the leaves path. Okay. So we can set the size of the bucket to anything we want, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, whatever. When it fills up, we're going to have a smart way of actually changing the hash table so that we can free up some space in the bucket if we need to. Okay? So let me show you an example here with 3 buckets. Okay, so suppose this is my trie. So here's the root, and this is the 0 bit, and this is the 1 bit. And let's assume that this gets us out to, God damn it. Don't fuck with me. Sorry. Let's assume this gets us out to a bucket called A. Okay? And let's assume that when we follow this one, we actually have another 0 and another 1. And this gets us to a bucket called B. And this gets us to a bucket called C. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is that when I looked at the hash values for the keys stored in this particular hash table, we don't know how big A, B, and C are, but for the hash values, when I looked at the first bit, that was enough for me to differentiate everything that starts with 0 fits in A. Everything that starts with bit 0 fits in A. Everything that starts with bit 1 didn't just fit in a single bucket, so I had to go to the next bit. So everything that starts with 1, 0 fits in bucket B, and everything that starts with 1, 1 fits in bucket C. Okay? Now, we're not going to use this kind of a structure. We're going to use an array structure, which is going to make it a lot more efficient for us to deal with this. So we're actually going to convert this. Well, let me show you what happens. So suppose that I had this. So one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure that at every level it's full. That is, that all the bits are being used. So what I really want is, since this is a 2-level trie, or a 2-level tree, I want 0, 1. But out here, I already have a 0, 1. And this points to B and C. But here I stopped, but I don't want to do that. I want this one to be full as well, so 0, 1, right? And we know that this points to A. All right, so all the elements that started with 0 point to A, so obviously all the elements that start with 0, 0 in terms of their hash key also point to A. Well, if all the elements that start with a bit 0 in their hash value point to A, where do all the elements with a starting value 0, 1 point to? They must also point to A, right? Everything that starts with 0 points to A, so it doesn't matter if it's 0, 0, or 0, 1, they're both going to point to A. So there's a common bucket there. But now what I've done is I've extended the try into a complete try. Okay, so this is a complete try. Or it's actually also called a bucket directory in extendable hashing. You can't even see that. So no use. So this is a complete try or a bucket directory in extendable hashing terminology. So why do I care about that? It's because if I have a complete try or bucket directory like this, then I can actually convert this into an array. So suppose I converted this into the following. Same thing, right? I've just redrawn it as an array structure as opposed to a try tree-like structure, okay? And so what's nice about this? Well, let's convert these values. What's 0, 0 in binary? 0. 0, 1 is 1, 1, 0 is 2, and 2, 1, 1 is 3. They are the indices of the array, okay? So these, that is the part of the binary numbers along the path to the bucket, also tell you which entry in the array points to the bucket. All right? And so you should be intuitively thinking to yourself now, arrays, I remember direct indexing through arrays is good. And this looks like it's going to give me the ability to directly index from the starting part of a key's hash value into an array location that gives me the address of the bucket that contains that key. And that sounds very efficient, right? Because I take the hash value, I figure out how many bits I need, I take that number of bits, I convert it into a digit, I go to that index in the array, I pull out whatever bucket it points to, and if my key is in the hash table, it will be in that bucket. That's what it's telling us, right? And that's a constant time operation. And although we're going to talk about some details, really that is how extendable hashing gets constant time search performance. Okay, so we obviously haven't talked about what happens when the buckets get full, what happens when we add or remove things, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to deal with all of that in a way that's also going to be constant time. Okay, but this is the basic idea behind extendable hashing. All right. Any questions about that before I go into some of the details of how this all works? All right. So, to search a bucket directory, like the one I just showed you, of size n, and I'm going to call the bucket directory A. So it's a little confusing because I named one of the buckets A, but let's call the bucket directory A of size n. for a record with key k, primary key k. First, we hash k to hk. Second, we extract the most significant log to the base 2 of n bits of h. Okay. So if we had a bucket directory of size 4, we would extract the top 2 bits. If we had a bucket directory of size 8, we would extract the top 3 bits, and so on. Okay? In our example, n equals 4, so we extract the most significant two bits, because log to the base 2 of 4 is 2. We next convert the bits, which I'm going to call B, into an index I. And because of B's width, we know 0 is going to be less than or equal to I, is going to be less than or equal to n minus 1, right? So if you have 2 bits, you're constrained to be from 0 to 3. If you have 3 bits, you're constrained to be from 0 to 7. And so the number of bits that we're extracting will exactly fit the size of A, the number of entries in our hash table. And then finally, we search A sub I for K. If it exists, it must be in this bucket. Right? Any questions about this before I show you an example? It's not complicated, right? It's another one of those algorithms where you look at it and you think, wow, that's really straightforward. I wonder why I didn't think of that. Incredibly elegant and incredibly efficient. Okay. As most good algorithms are. Good work, Fagan. I wonder where that guy is now. Okay, so example time. Suppose our hash function covers the range 0 to 255, right? So the hash function does have some maximum value in it where you divide and take the remainder. It's just that that maximum value doesn't in any way have to be tied or is not tied to the current size of the hash table, which is why we're going to be able to get around this issue of adding and removing things from the table without having to rip everything out and put everything back in. Okay? And we want to search directory A for a key K with a hash value HK of 192. Okay, so when we hash K, we get back 192 with whatever hash function we're using. Okay, we know that 192 equals, in binary form, 11000000. So all of our hash values are going to have 8 bits. That's why I needed to tell you that we went out to 255, because I needed to explain to you how wide the binary mask is going to be, because you could have a whole bunch of zeros at the front, right? So it's not like you can just convert it into a binary value and stop when you see the last most significant one. You have to actually make it the same width as the width of the maximum possible value from the hash table, which is 8 bits. So there it is. So we extract log to the base 4 equals the 2 most significant bits, 1, 1. Which is 3 in base 10 format. And we search A3 for key K. All right, so really simple. If K had hashed to HK equals 42, which equals the binary value of 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, we would have searched I equals 0, B 0, 0 equals 0, so A sub 0. Okay, so you see what I mean about we have to keep it 8 bits wide. Can't stop here like this and take 1, 0, because I think that's not going to work. Have to keep it 8 wide. Take the top 2 bits, most significant bits. Okay?
So because our bucket directory is size 4, this is almost like we're simulating a hash table of size 4 times the number of, like, whatever the bucket size is, which might be 1 in this case. So our hash table is just like 4.
Yep, at this current, if you had a bucket size of 1, at this current state of the extendable hashing table, you could store no more than 4 keys. You're correct. And so once we store something that overflows any of the buckets, which would be the second key that goes in our case, in the example you're describing, we're going to have to do something to address that. And that's when we talk about the insertion algorithm, that's where we're going to show how to efficiently increase the size of the bucket table so that we can handle basically more keys with a fixed bucket size. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So in a sense, in the sense that you are right, and I haven't told you yet how to deal with this, but it's definitely going to have to be dealt with. Yeah. Other questions about this? It's me. Okay. It's a little early, but it's also Friday, and I'm tired, and you're probably tired, or you're not paying attention, which is fine too. So I don't want to get into the insertion algorithm part way and then have to stop and pick it up again on Monday. So if you're good with it, I am going to stop here. The only other thing I'll mention is that there was no concern from anyone about the assignment being pushed. So you'll get email from me today saying it's being pushed back to 2 days prior to the final exam. And so that's all good to go. You'll have a reasonably big chunk of time between the assignment 3 due date and the assignment 4 due date. Any other concerns that you want to ask me about now in public before I let you go? All right, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.